Hello YouTube community, my name is the Jacob13, and today we're going to be doing a review of what happened in AEW from the June 2nd episode of Dark, all the way up until the June, I believe it was 10th, yes, 10th, June 10th episode of Dynamite. This is going to include BTE for the week of June 9th as well, so it was June 8th, I believe, is when that episode of BTE happened. I apologize for not sounding completely here. I'm still recovering a little bit from what's been going on recently. Before I get into all of this, because there are mentions of it throughout this, obviously the world's in a very weird spot. It has been for a little bit, but having what's happened recently with BLM, having a resurgence due to the killing of George Floyd, the crazy amounts of stuff all over the internet and all over the news of police killings, police being killed, rioting, looting, all this kind of stuff that's been happening. I've just sort of been out of it. I don't typically like to talk about this. I mentioned it in a video that will be going up in the episode of First Day of the Rest of My Life a little bit better. Hopefully that will have a little bit more coherence to it, but I just want you guys to know that I didn't go away because of laziness. I didn't go away because I forgot. I went away because I needed time to myself to digest it all, and it's difficult on this platform, and I mentioned this again in the video for First Day of the Rest of My Life. It's difficult on this platform to not speak my mind and not talk about those kinds of things because they're bothering me. But this isn't the place for that. This isn't the time for that. And this is not the outlet in which I would like to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, anyway, let's get into the AEW review stuff. This episode should be going up sometime Tuesday, 9 o'clock, I think is what I'm going to try and do. And there will be another one of these for this week's episode of BTE, Dynamite, and Dark. And if there's a Row 2, I might start including those two. I haven't checked that out recently. I have been listening to the podcast as well. If there's anything interesting there mentioned, I might include that too. I'm just trying to get everything AEW related down for these type of review videos because it's becoming something I'm very much enjoying. And it's a welcome reprieve from the craziness of the world, I guess. They still mention stuff. They aren't afraid to realize that the world exists outside of wrestling. And one of the things that's happened in the past couple of episodes of this stuff touches on that. So if you don't want to hear anything about that further, this episode's not for you, sadly. But I'd love to have you come back the next episode, and hopefully there won't be anything too political charged, I guess. I try not to put my opinions on all of that or my biases out there currently because this isn't the place for it. Like I've said, it's difficult for me because this is my career path. This is what I do. So yeah, sometimes I question whether or not that's a smart idea because it's very taxing on me mentally a lot of the time. But regardless, rambled on enough about that. Moving on. So the Dark episode. What I'm going to be doing with Darks are a bit different from the last time that I made one of these. It's going to be more of a what happened overall. I'm going to do the same sort of thing with BTE. Just going to sort of give you an idea of what happened overall. Dark is going to be a bit different because it won't be a play-by-play of like what happened. So like if there are 10 matches, it won't be a this happens in this match, this happens in this match kind of thing. Whereas with BTE, if there are 15 segments, I'll mention each segment in a witty way, I guess. You'll see what I mean when I get to that for the next section. But for Dark on June 2nd, it was pretty interesting. So Christy James has now been signed. She got a nice cheeky win on Dark that I thought was really good. It was between her and another one of the unsigned talents whose name is escaping me, but she has sort of like a I want to say it's more of like a Gaelic theme going on about her, or an Irish theme of some sort. I can't remember her name. I should have looked it up, but I'm unprofessional, and y'all know that by now. Throughout this, there was also storytelling regarding the QT, Marshall, and Allie storyline that's happening. It looks to me that they're going to have Blade, the Bunny, and the Butcher in some form of rivalry with Brandy Rhodes and the Natural Nightmares, and that will probably come to a head at Fyter Fest. I don't know yet, but that's what it's looking like, and it looks like it might be a heel turn for QT, and I prefer QT as a babyface, but I think that with this storyline that they've got, he's been doing a very good job as the obliviously stupid character who is falling for everything and becoming a dick because of it. I think it's really good. However, the story in general, I wasn't really a fan of at first. It wasn't my cup of tea. I think it started to grow on me a little bit because as the time's gone on and I've seen what they've done with it, it's gotten a little bit better, but I'm still anxious, I guess. My boys from Private Party had their BTE sketch, and that ended up getting wrecked by Proud and Powerful. I don't remember exactly what that means, but that's the note that I took. I think that they came into a match against them on Dark and lost. Yeah. Okay, so there were two guys who were in the BTE sketch from Private Party's stuff. One of them was playing the Switch, and one of them was the house that they were at. Those two guys teamed up and went up against Proud and Powerful and got wrecked. That's what I meant by that. It wasn't Private Party that got wrecked. It was their friends. Gotcha. I completely forgot about that. But yeah, that was pretty cool, I guess. Otherwise, the rest of the show was mainly squash matches, so not much to grade on that. But those three things, Christy Jane's getting a win on her first time being on the roster, I guess, was pretty good. QT and Allie having their storyline stuff being pushed on Dark was interesting. And then Proud and Powerful getting to beat the crap out of a guy playing a Switch and a dude who has a zombie persona that he hasn't brought out yet or some shit. Like, it's pretty cool. But I kind of miss the days when Dark had meaning on the standings, when people that fought on Dark were people from the main roster. I get why they're doing it the way they did. We'll get back to that eventually, where you'll have people who you can see on Dynamite on a regular basis going off against people you see on Dynamite on a regular basis on Dark. Where we had like Kenny Omega versus Joey Janela on Dark. Like, I want that back because that was cool. But I get why they're doing it, and it is nice to see the young indie talent get to show themselves off. And not just the young indie talent, but the veterans from the indies who haven't had that chance to show their shine. The match with Moxley and the one guy that he had a feud with back when they were in CZW together, I think it was. That was a really good match, for example. And that guy's been in the business for like 15, 17 years. So it's pretty good. I thought that this show was a bit better than just squash matches, though, so I gave it a B-. And we'll move on to the June 3rd episode, which was my grandfather's birthday, surprisingly enough, episode of AEW Dynamite. So the show began with a "we hear you, your voice is heard" kind of thing, in reference to Black Lives Matter in the intro. And then they did basically a rerun promo of all the stuff after that for what has been going on for context. And in my opinion, what they did with that, one was really good to that they were acknowledging what's happening in the world and all the people that were saying, you need to make a public statement about this and all that. They got their public statement that, happened on live TV. I feel like the whole you have to say something about this regardless of who you are is a little bit, it cheapens the actual sentiment behind it. So if you say everyone has to say something, then when everybody says something, the people that said something that's actually impactful versus the people that said something that was just to say it to not get canceled or whatever, you don't have the same messaging there. Somebody's saying something that's impactful in an area where no one else is saying impactful things actually matters. Someone who says something impactful in an area where everybody's saying the same goddamn thing, it doesn't matter as much. So I don't really like that they were in a way forced to do it, but I think that they would have done it regardless. I think that that's just their character and what they value. So I think that's okay. But as far as the show stuff goes, the rerunning of what's been going on, the promo stuff, I thought that was really good. Them having this new style of promo-heavy episodes in order to tell stories has, in my opinion, worked out pretty decently. I'm more of a fan of matches telling the stories, but they've done a good job at making the promos interesting, at making the video packages really good. And then this one, it shows that they have an improvement on their awareness of the audience that they have, people who might not have watched every week, and on the world situations, the Black Lives Matter stuff. I think that that's a very good combination that they had in their intro package here. And as a result of that, I gave half a point to the lowest grade. The first match of the night was a banger of a match. Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc, who are now going as the Super Bad Death Squad. That's what we'll find out later on. They didn't say that for this episode or for the next episode. It was at the end of the June 10th episode. Anyway, Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc, Super Bad Death Squad versus Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega, lovingly known as Hangmega, who are the champions. This was a tag team championship match to start the night off, and on paper, amazing opener. I was really hoping that they would go with a very good match style because it could be an amazing match, and I got my wish. Very good match. So at the very beginning, they had a reference on commentary to The Office Party, which made me super happy. It's like, this has been something that was on Twitter all the time. People were talking about it. I apologize for constantly getting drinks, but my throat is dry and it's whatever. So to acknowledge it on camera and acknowledge it on commentary, I think was a really good option. I think it did a service to the people who paid attention to that kind of stuff, but also it's just a funny one-offer for those who don't care about that so much. I think that it's interesting to have that connection of, if you're paying attention, you know what this means. If you weren't paying attention and you're just here for the show, you still get to have a nice laugh with it because it is a decent joke. So I gave plus 0.25 to the lowest grade for that. So Penelope Ford tries to get involved. She tries to Hurricane Rana Hangman, and Hangman holds her and is just like, no, you're not going to do this. The referee's looking at him like, dude, put her down. He's like, what should I do? What should I do? And he said, well, put her down. He's like, oh, okay. So he does. She gets ejected. But then Havoc, while the referee is not looking, ends up hitting Hangman with a ring wrench. And it looks like this is the turning around for the bad guys. I've mentioned this a lot recently. The bad guys of Hangman and Havoc, I don't know why I said Hangman, of Havoc and Sabian, those two have been phenomenal. I've loved their stuff. They end up doing the PK kick for this one on Hangman, because they don't get the 3 count on the ring wrench stuff. And Knox is looking at them, who is the referee, and he's like, I can't decide, it didn't really happen to me. I don't see it right now, which I think is hilarious because it's just like, dude, you've been playing along with him the whole time, now you're not. It's okay. But then Hangman gets up. He was the guy who was kicked with the PK, and he goes, it's good. And because of that, I gave this a full letter grade. It's the continuity of the storyline. It makes it so much better. I love that. And giving it a full letter grade, going up from like a B+ to an A, or a B- to a B, or something like that. Not from a B to an A. Obviously, that's too much. But I think that that's very deserved for that kind of long-term storytelling that's happened over the course of 3 or 4 weeks now. I think that it's a well-deserved bump up. Plus, it was just funny, and I really liked it. Havoc has been doing a Shoryuken in the corner for a little while, like with the European uppercut. I love it. It's great. I wanted to give extra points for it, but I just thought I'd mention it instead, since I've already given a lot of points for this match. Um, yeah, so there's a lot of other stuff that happens throughout the match. It's a really good match. I definitely suggest going checking it out. But it ends when Hangmega hit the last call, is what they're calling the V-Trigger Buckshot Lariat combination. And they get the 1, 2, 3, retaining their titles. This was an A grade. It would have been a B plus prior to, or sorry, it would have been an A minus rather prior to the bumping up from the long-term storytelling with the PK. So I absolutely love that. That was really big. Havoc and Sabian are becoming some of my favorites. I wasn't originally a fan of it because I thought that Jimmy Havoc would be better by himself, but him and Sabian have really proven me wrong. They had the whole PK bet. Their heel work has been amazing with Penelope Ford distracting the referee, or one of them distracting the referee, the fish hooks, the using weapons. Very classic heel work kind of stuff with their own twist to it, and it just looked really good. They also have this mixture of comedy and the Smash Mouth style that Jimmy Havoc is known for that really works so well. This match could have gotten an A+, but I thought about it for a little while, and I couldn't justify giving this match an A+, and having it on par with a match, for example, like Hangmega versus the Young Bucks at Revolution. Like, that would have been an A+ had I graded it then. And I think I did grade it. I think I did grade it an A+. I think I graded Revolution. I can't remember. Wait, that wasn't Revolution. Was it? No, I think that was something else. Whatever the case, you know the match that I'm talking about. That would have been an A+. I couldn't see this being justified as the same thing. Also, because it is a TV show match, I have difficulty giving anything on the TV shows an A+ grading. But anyway, it was still a damn good match. Hangman has now shot up to my top 3. I was debating putting him there for a while now, but he's there now. Solid top 3. Darby's my number 1. Hikaru Shida is my number 2. I'm so glad she's the champion. And Hangman is my number 3. And I think that those 3 are going to be the backbones of the company anyway, so it just so happens that I love the people that they're pushing, which is great. That's always a good thing. Shawn Spears has a promo where after the yelling that he got from Tully Blanchard, Tully's like, okay, well, I think I found the key for the search to Spears. I think it's over, and this is what it is. He gives Shawn Spears a black glove. I have no clue what this means. I don't know what this will mean. We're just going to have to wait and see. There's not been a payoff just yet, but I'm hoping there will be. With the teasing that happened with FTR on the 610 episode, June 10th episode, I'm thinking that they either are teasing an idea of having 4 Horsemen with Cody, Shawn Spears, and FTR, or they are actually going to pull the trigger on that, or they'll do something similar, where those guys, maybe not with Cody, for example, it might be somebody else, like an MJF character, but they'll find something there, and I'm excited to see what happens, but I'm nervous that it's going to take a while, and I don't like stories that take that long to mature. It's not... For example, the Yuka Sakazaki and Riho storyline hasn't matured, and it was one of those that I was waiting for it to mature, waiting for it to mature. She came in, Yuka came into the company, got signed, had some matches, but then they didn't do anything with it. I wish they did. I wish there was something there. Maybe they would have done something had Yuka and Riho been able to be on live TV more often recently, regarding, them not being able to because of the coronavirus stuff. But had they been able to, I think it would have made a very good storyline. Anyway, the next match was Brian Cage versus Shawn Dean. Cage wins the match. Not much more to say about that. He hits him with a drill claw. Game over. Shawn Dean looking good again, selling his ass off. Taz then hits a great promo. Mox then comes out, cuts a great promo as well. These two guys cut really good promos. So instead of this being a C+ grade, because it was a squash match, I give it a B. Those 2 great promos and hyping it up for Fyter Fest really made me excited for the match. And that was enough in my eyes to bump it up 2 full letter grades from a C+ to a B. I think that was really good. Both promos got me invested in the story. Taz has always been one of the greatest shit talkers on the mic. Moxley continues to be one of the better ones himself, and he's really beginning to come in his own as the champion in a way that I never thought he really could. And that's saying a lot, because I had high hopes for him, and he's already blown me out of the water beyond what even I thought. So, anyway. Lance Archer's behind backstage or in some sort of outdoor area, not really backstage. I don't know where the hell it is, but I think it's somewhere on premises. And he ends up destroying Fuego del Sol, who is a backyard wrestler who ended up finally making a break, being able to compete on Dark. I think he does it next week, this June 9th episode. And then Lance Archer is just like, one loss isn't going to stop me. I'm still on my path of destruction, and I will get what I want because everybody dies. And, does his thing. And then he moves on. And it's very clear Jake Roberts is disturbed. He's never seen this side of Archer before. That's good. I can't wait to see what they do with it. Haven't had the payoff for that yet. I'm thinking they'll probably wait until after Fyter Fest for that payoff, because they already have a stacked card. Like, you've got Hangmega versus Best Friends. Amazing match. One that I thought they were going to do for Revolution, I think it was. They didn't end up pulling the trigger on that. It wasn't Revolution. It was Revolution. It was Revolution that they had the match. I'm sorry, I'm getting lost in my head. But you've got the Hangmega versus Best Friends. You're going to have Cody versus Jake Hager, which I'll explain with the next episode when they get to that section. You're going to have Moxley versus Brian Cage. Should be an amazing match. And they haven't given the full picture for it just yet, but I'm thinking it's going to be Penelope Ford versus Hikaru Shida. And those 4 matches alone are really good. I'm very much looking forward to those matches alone. But there's other matches that they've got planned. They mentioned them, and I'll probably remember when I look at my notes for that. But we'll get back to that later when we come to it. I'm just jumping ahead of myself. Then Private Party and Matt Hardy do a cool little deal thing. Matt Hardy using his split personality stuff. I'm loving it. I'm thinking it's pretty good. Him and Private Party is a really good next step in his overall arc with AEW. He helped out the Young Bucks and made sure that he helped them get to exact their revenge on the Inner Circle. And then in his quest to completely make all Delete Wrestling as good as it can be, he's now going for people that remind him of him and his brother, and that would be Private Party. He'll probably also do the same with TH2 when they come back, because TH2 has, in my eyes, a very promising future if they were given the chance. But because Jack Evans and Angelico are not able to currently show up on TV, they've been doing a lot of promos in Road 2 that have been amazing. I've really looked forward to those. I hope that they're given the chance to be serious contenders as well, because I've seen Angelico. I watched him in Lucha Underground. I'm still watching Lucha Underground too. I haven't quite finished that. By haven't quite finished that, I mean I'm only on episode 26 of season 1, so I've got plenty of show to go. Anyway, because of the way that I watched this, I didn't watch it live. I watched it on rerun because it was on my grandfather's birthday, and he and I spent time together with family and all that. So I don't really know what the commercial situation looked like, so I had a difficult time trying to find a commercial grade. But they did do a Cody and Jungle Boy promo for the match, at the end of the night for the main event. And they gave a commercial for Fyter Fest. Then they had a Inner Circle promo, which led to why Colt is going up against Jericho. Because Colt was the guy who was really blocking Jericho from getting to him, despite the fact that the entire locker room was preventing that. But regardless, I'm not really a fan of the Tyson Jericho thing. We'll see where it goes. They've sort of dropped it partially. Like, he's still mentioning it, but it looks like Orange Cassidy is now the guy that they're really trying to push against Jericho, which I think will be an amazing match. Jericho will win, unless somehow Orange Cassidy pulls the rat trap on him, in which case give that man a title shot, because he deserves it. But I'm fairly certain Jericho will win that feud. So the next match was Colt Cabana versus Chris Jericho. Sammy Guevara comes out singing Jericho's theme song, Judas, butchering it again, and I hate it when he does this, but I gotta give it to him. It takes balls to sing that poorly on live TV and have that much confidence about it. And he's done this a couple of times. While the music's playing, while Judas is going, they pan over to QT, and him and Allie are doing whatever the hell they want. Commentary mentions this, but I did notice it prior to them mentioning it. And I like that. I like that they're being self-aware with that kind of thing. I like that they're continuing storylines like that. I'm not a fan of the QT Alley storyline just yet at this point when I made this stuff. I'm still not quite sold on it right now even. But I did like that, and that was the beginning of my wheels starting to turn as, well, maybe this could be a good story. There was a commercial break, very noticeable one. As I mentioned, I didn't watch it live, but this one was very clearly set up as a commercial break, and you could tell by the editing. And because I haven't really been able to tell where commercial breaks would have been, in my eyes, that was a very good indication that they had good flow with their commercial breaks. The only one that I could tell was a break was this one, and prior to the TNT Championship promo, there was a likely commercial break there. The match goes on. I got a little bit invested into it, but not super. So when I got invested into it, I didn't take a whole lot of notes. It was a typical Cabana match. Jericho throwing in his little flair, fighting outside the ring for a little bit. But there was a really cool move where it looked like Colt Cabana was on the upper hand, and he goes for the Superman pin. But Jericho reverses that into the walls. They call it the Lion Tamer, probably for copyright reasons. But from... What the hell? I got scrolled down by accident on my computer, on my phone. But because of the way that it's positioned, it's more of a Walls of Jericho than it is a Lion Tamer. The Lion Tamer, to me, at least, I could be wrong. Jericho can say whatever the hell he wants as his finishing move. But to me, the Lion Tamer is when he bends them at a more awkward angle and like has his knee in their back, versus the Walls of Jericho, which is more like a Boston Crab. And in this scenario, it was more of the Walls style. But they called it the Lion Tamer. Who cares? Really cool reversal from the Superman pin, but he doesn't get the tap from that. Colt stumbles when trying to get fancy with it and gets hit by the Judas Effect, knocked out for the 1-2-3. The fact that the Judas Effect is still really powerful and has the weight of basically the One-Winged Angel right now, where neither one of them has been kicked out of, neither one of them seems to be in jeopardy of being overused. For example, you have the Twist of Fate, which has been kicked out of on Dynamite multiple times. You have Cody's Crossroads, which has been kicked out of on Dynamite multiple times. So there are very clearly protected finishers that they have, Judas Effect being one of them, and I like that. I wasn't a huge fan of it originally, but I think that it's becoming a really powerful move based purely on the way that it's been sold. Cabana here sells it as if he was knocked the hell out, and that looked really good. The match gets a B, which was okay, but it was, an average match because it's an average non-squash match. A B is roughly where I was going to put that kind of stuff. Technically, if I'm being, technically correct with grades, a C would be an average passing grade. But because C pluses are like my max range for squash matches, I had to bump it up. So obviously there's a bit of an inflationary problem with my grading system. Things that are given Bs and things that are given As are very clearly things that I very much enjoyed, but weren't necessarily amazing matches. I might have to change it up a bit in the future, and I will decide on that. But for now, I'll stick with my my grading process. I got scrolled down again by accident. I don't know why my phone's doing this. Whatever the case. Jericho then cuts a promo, and he says something about like the most badass man or some shit like that. But ass was censored. I don't know why, because he said bullshit earlier on in the what you call him. So I'm very confused about why they censored that. Either they knew it was coming, or they planned it to be said like that, or I don't know. But he calls out Mike Tyson's like, dude, I want the baddest man on the planet. And then out comes OC, like I said before. And OC gives the greatest sign of respect to Jericho by taking both of his hands and putting them in his pockets. Jericho didn't have pockets on his pants, so he just sort of put them in the belt of his pants. And that was really good. Then the Inner Circle beats him down. You have best friends coming out to support their boy. And eventually they get away. Pretty good stuff. I'm excited for OC versus Jericho. Should be pretty good. Then there's commercial break. They come back with more of a review for what's up for Fyter Fest and what's happened so far in the episode. Then they have a Britt Baker package, and she is such a role model. When watching her explain this new role model gimmick, she said that it was based off of what Jericho did in WCW, which I never watched. But I really like it, because it is the delusional heel gimmick that has always been one of my favorites. I prefer a heel that has one of the following characteristics. They're delusional as hell, they're partially correct, and or they're just goofy as fuck. If it's one of those three things, they're a good heel in my book. And she happens to be delusional as hell, and I love it. She's not really correct, and honestly, I don't think she's goofy. I think she does a good job of being serious. But regardless, after the Britt Baker package, we have a match that I was really looking forward to, of Big Swole versus Nyla Rose. And this match delivered. I was very surprised at how well the match ended up being, because I am very critical of the women's division because I know they can do better. And because of my critical nature of it, I went into this expecting to be let down. And I wasn't. It was a very good match, and I apologize for doing that, because it's not something that I take great pride in, because obviously I love Chris Statlander, obviously I love Hikaru Shida, obviously I love Nyla Rose. I think that they're all amazing. Big Swole has started to wear on me, even though I really didn't get her character at first. When she finally did that promo where she talked about her story and talked about coming back from, I think it's Crohn's disease is what she has. That was a bit endearing, but there was never really anything done after that. I'm thinking that they're starting to build that up, and this match was a very good first step towards that. Swole had a lot of really big hits in this match, and she impressed the hell out of me in terms of her in-ring stuff. Her match against Shanna a little while back was really the only time that I got to see a good indication of what Big Swole could do. This match was really good in that regards, because it basically put her as a toe-to-toe competitor with Nyla in terms of strength. Obviously, Nyla was stronger. There were a lot of moments where Big Swole went for something and Nyla countered it with her strength. But she's very clearly got a lot of what it takes to bring it to Nyla. And with enough time, I think that her and Hikaru Shida could have an amazing feud. I would like Hikaru to be the heel in that, though, because I think that Big Swole is meant to be a babyface. I really like the idea of making her a heel. I think that Big Swole as a heel could be good, but I think her story is too good to let go to waste, and I think that she can use that very, very well to gain sympathy, to be a babyface that people want to cheer on. But Hikaru Shida, as much as I love her and as much as I cheer her on, I think would need to be the heel in that scenario, because I think she could do it really well. And I'm looking forward to seeing if that could happen down the road somewhere. Not for a little while. I would like that to be in front of people so that we can get a live reaction to it. But for now, keep Hikaru as babyface. Keep Big Swole as a babyface. You don't need them fighting each other yet. Nyla gets rocked by a lot of different elbows and forearm strikes and punches, and it looks like Big Swole has her on the ropes, but then she just hits one sit-out spine buster. And she had other moves throughout the match. She wasn't completely offensiveless, but it looked like she was on the ropes and about to get beaten. But she has one really big sit-out spine buster and wins the match. Overall, it was a pretty good match, pretty decent. I give it a B, about the average grade for what you'd expect. There was a lot to like here, but I really wasn't as into this match as it deserved. It was much better than what I originally anticipated, but because of my mindset going into it, I wasn't completely invested in the story that was being told. After the match, Swole had a really good promo, and it wasn't one that she got to say a lot in. She began saying stuff, and then Britt Baker started saying a bunch of stuff, and then Swole goes after her. That was really good, and I'm looking forward to Big Swole versus Britt Baker when that can eventually happen. I think that would be a really good build. And it could be a good match for Britt Baker coming back to really assert her dominance and being the face of the women's division. Because Big Swole would be a credible challenger. I think that Big Swole is going to be built pretty strongly. And down the road, I see her being a future AEW Women's Champion. I don't know when, but I do see it eventually happening. She also says, "fuck y'all" to MJF at one point. The camera caught it. They couldn't censor it. It wasn't on a mic, but I love it anyway because I love that they are being genuine and they are able to act themselves, even if that goes past the TV-14 guidelines. Really good stuff. Pineapple. I'm trying not to sneeze. So Darby was injured, obviously, at Double or Nothing. And because of that, he's not able to compete. However, he says that he wants to go against Brian Cage when he comes back. I'm kind of on the fence on if this is a work or not, to be quite honest with you. It could be, because what I am thinking has happened, and this has now sort of gotten me turning the mind because of what I saw in the Darby Allin Unrestricted podcast. It seems he was working on a project, a movie of some sort. He was working on his skate video that he's been, putting off for a while now, adding what he can to it, but obviously not able to do a whole bunch. And I think that they're probably, because of how stacked the roster currently is, allowing him to work on those and building the foundations for it and filming what he can while all of this stuff is going down. I think that's what's happening. I could be wrong. And if that's the case, that's really cool of them, that they're allowing him to explore his other passion, his other passions, I should say. I was going to say just his other passion of skateboarding, but it's also his passion of videography, film, and making a documentary of sorts, and all of that. I think that's really cool. But if it's not a work, and he is injured, I hope he gets well soon, because him versus Brian Cage is a match I am very much looking forward to. I think they're going to have a barn burner, and I hope that they don't do Darby dirty, because he deserves everything. He is the best guy they have there, and that's saying a lot because they have the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Hangman Adam Page, Chris Jericho, Cody Rhodes, Jon Moxley, Jimmy Havoc, Jake Hager, Brian Cage, Brody Lee, Lance Archer. No, he is the best. And I'm just talking about the guys. I'm not even comparing him to against the women. That's its own story too, because I think that to compare him against people like Hikaru Shida and Chris Statlander would be unfair to Hikaru Shida and Chris Statlander, and it would be unfair to Darby Allin, because they're very different types of things that you need to be successful in the women's division on AEW than what you need to be successful in the men's division. But regardless of that, I still think that Darby's even better than them. And that's saying a lot, because I have high regard for Shida, Statlander, Baker, Swole, Nyla Rose, even if it doesn't sound like it. Regardless, they have an interview with FTR, Forever the Revival, For the Revolt, For the Revolution. It's just a mindset. It's not a real thing that is symbolic of anything in particular. We all know it stands for, but you know. It stands for fuck the revolt. Fuck the revival. Whatever the case, you know what I meant. Because that was the BTE storyline that went on for a while. But they really make it into their own. And this was a very good interview. It was very emblematic of their personalities and what they want to achieve. And them being able to talk about what they're going on. And show you what their future holds for them. Which looks to be Butcher and Blade first. Which is why I'm confused what's going to happen with Allie and QT. Maybe that's a longer term story that they're building there. I don't know. But this was really good, so I'm giving it plus 0.5 to the lowest grade. The lowest grade now has plus 1.25. That's really high. Promo work has been really good this week. Colt Cabana had an interview, and Brody Lee comes out and says he can help him. He's like, you don't have to worry about your losses. It's what you do after the losses that make you who you are. The guy who's been in all the promos, who seems to be their like agent or whatever, gives him a water and he says, think about it. You know, Colt's like, I don't want any part of that. But then he drinks the water given to him. Is that drinking the Kool-Aid? Is that him agreeing to it? We'll see. And I'll talk a bit more about it next week because with the next week's portion, the June 10th stuff, because it does get expounded upon a little bit. But I'm liking that. I'm liking that storyline. Then there was Jungle Boy versus Cody Rhodes, or just Cody, as he wants to be called, for the TNT Championship in the main event. There was a commercial break right before the match that I could tell happened. This match was one that I graded harshly in the watching of it. But I have an opinion on it that has changed since. I'm not changing the grade, but I'll explain it more after I talk about Cody versus Mark Quinn next portion. But regardless of that, let's get into this. They had Jungle Boy on the sheet. They've now begun doing this thing where they actually have the right person's name on the sheet. I guess somebody called them out for the Wardlow stuff. I think that's really good continuity. They did listen to me about Revolution and having that done incorrectly. Or it might have been Double or Nothing that I said that. I don't remember. Whatever. I don't even think I did anything for Revolution. I think it was Double or Nothing that I talked about. I don't know, man. It doesn't matter. But I think that that's really good. They've begun doing that, actually taking care of that. Makes good sense. Cody is fired up, and he is really looking good in this match. Jungle Boy seems to be out of his element in a lot of ways at first. But then Jungle Boy comes back, and it's partially because of a spot that I was not a fan of. Cody goes for a headbutt, ends up hitting his head against the barricade that has like the lights, and it's very clear that they did a blade job here. Jungle Boy and MJF have a bit of a spat. Because of this, I took off 0.25. It really wasn't necessary. It wasn't something I enjoyed. The bleeding didn't add to the match like it typically could. And so because of that, pineapple. Jesus Christ. Because of that, I took off points. They eventually start fighting and get back in the ring. They're up on the turnbuckle. They both are throwing punches, haymakers after haymakers. And Jungle Boy loses his balance just a slight bit, ends up careening them both into a table that was set up earlier in the match. But Cody gets up first, even though he's the one who went down into it back first. He ends up then, after that, fighting a little bit more, hits him with the crossroads, 1, 2, 3. I give this match a C. I wasn't into it. I didn't like it. The bleeding didn't help it any. The table spot itself was very clearly contrived in a way that was beyond my suspense of disbelief when those table spots happen. And the match just sort of felt forced. And I'm not saying this because Jungle Boy did bad or because Cody did bad. I think that they told the story the way they wanted to, but the way that they wanted to wasn't a way that I was a fan of. And as this whole thing is graded, that's with the full 1.25 plus the negative 0.25 added to it. This would have been a D, or a C minus rather, quality match had it not been for that. Sorry about that. My nose started running and I needed to blow my nose. I was trying to sneeze anyway. Works out. Sorry about that though. It was really not a great match for me. It would have had a C minus. It got the +1, so it went up to a C, but this match wasn't for me. It was still good, so it's not going to get a failing grade, but anyway, I think the commercial breaks flowed pretty decently based on how I saw it. It wasn't a live watch of it though, so as a result of that, instead of giving it full marks on everything, I just gave it a B. The show might have deserved a bit better than that, but because everything else did so well, it doesn't retract from it too much, so it gets a +0.5 to the overall grade. There were 5 matches, all of them averaged up to a B. You then had the +0.5, and it rounds everything up to a B+. Fairly decent show. B+ on Dynamite, B- on Dark for June 2nd and June 3rd. Then we go to June 9th and June 10th. And, surprisingly enough, for the first edition of BTE, June 8th. So with BTE, the way I'm going to do it is tell you basically everything that happened in a witty one-sentence sort of abbreviation of it. Think of this as the teaser that you see when you look up a show on demand. When it says, like, this episode, this happens. So on the June 8th episode of BTE, Colt Cabana has a shit segment, which is read as funny. It's a very funny segment, but they called it shit during the taping of it. Best friends are shirking their responsibilities to create some sort of skit on the show. Matt Hardy tries to pause the multiverse every time a rib has been mentioned in this one thing, until eventually the insider term has been used and he can continue on with his gimmick. CD, Christopher Daniels, talks about his colonoscopy. Santana and Ortiz begin a new segment, a Spanglish segment, which I love, on words that you could use in Spanglish, this one being about botella, which roughly is translated to ass instead of bottle. Botella in Spanish is bottle. Botella in Spanglish means nice ass, basically. And Matt Jackson tries to get out of a meeting with his without using his trusty razor blade. Very good. I liked it a lot. I'm not grading BTE. Just telling you what it's about. It's a lot of fun. Go watch it yourself. Dark this week was a banger. It was actually really good Dark. 5 comes out for his first time ever. It's Alan Angels. They signed him. My boy. I am such a fan of Alan Angels. He is top 4. He is number 4 on my list of people that I am excited for. I really hope that he gets some time on the main roster and gets to shine, because I think that him and Preston Vance, 5 and 10, could really show what Dark Order is all about in their own ways. Anyway, he does a really good job in his match. There's a nice match that has Sonny and Christopher Daniels going 1-on-1. Really good match. And then the QT Alley stuff continues playing out in an interesting way that I liked. Also, Marco Stunt and Luchasaurus were in a match together against Proud and Powerful. Sorry, it wasn't against Proud and Powerful. They were against 2 jobbers, I guess. And Marco was saying, just like Proud and Powerful did, does it hurt? Yeah, it's supposed to. It's wrestling. Which is interesting, and I'll explain that in a second. But overall, it's a good show, so it gets a B grade. Now, why does it get a B grade? Well, first and foremost, Alan Angels being on the show, being signed, and being a part of the Dark Order, automatic bump up of a grade letter for that for me, because he is such a big part of my enjoyment of Dark now. Because there was a really good match between Sonny and Christopher Daniels, because the QT and Alley storyline is progressing in a way that's making me somewhat invested in it, and because Marco having this little nugget of a potential heel turn gets another grade up. So instead of being a C+, because of squash match stuff, it is a B grade. Very good. I hope they eventually pull the trigger on it and Marco joins the Inner Circle, or, and this is what I'm hoping for actually more, he joins a stable where it's Marco, Proud and Powerful, and Sammy Guevara. Because I'm thinking they're going to eventually split up Inner Circle, and I want Sammy to be the quote-unquote leader of that instead of Jericho. I think that could be really good. Marco being good friends with Sammy Guevara means that it could be possible. And him pulling the Proud and Powerful move, which is what they did in their match. I want to say it was against Nintendo Switch guy and Bones without Bones gimmick. I want to say that it was that match that they're like, does that hurt? It's supposed to, but it might have been another one. Regardless, Proud and Powerful did it. Marco does it here. I like it. So then Dynamite, it begins with an amazing tag match. Holy cow. FTR versus Butcher and the Blade. This match was amazing. I couldn't tell you all the stuff that happened in it because I was too enthralled. There was a 2 count on a superplex and splash combo from FTR that was the most high-flying I have ever seen those two do together, and that made me happy because I was like, they are so good. I never realized how good the Revival was. I didn't watch them back in NXT a whole lot. I saw some of their stuff, but not a lot of it. I didn't watch them on WWE, so I didn't get to really tell how good they were, but I knew they were good because what I saw was at least enjoyable. I didn't know they were this good. This was also probably the best match I've seen out of Butcher and the Blade, and if they can put on performances like this in the future, they're going to regain my trust in them. I thought they had a good potential. They immediately blew that when they lost to QT and Darby and Cody, who never tagged before in their lives. Anyway, FTR hits the Mindbreaker, which is like an assisted pile driver. Very much a callback to Four Horsemen stuff, which is making me wonder if they're being cheeky or if they're actually leading to that. But FTR gets their first win in AEW. This is one of the best TV matches I have seen in a long time. It gets an A+. I have trouble giving A+ to Dynamite matches. It has to be, typically in my eyes, a match on a pay-per-view for me to give it an A+ if it's that good. But this was an A+ match. It got all of the highlights of what you want in a debut, plus all of the things you want to see in a first match on the show to get everybody riled up and excited. Plus, it was just a damn good match in general. They could have been anywhere on the card and stolen the show. I didn't even bump this up due to their promo after the match, which was really good too. But yeah, go check this match out if you haven't seen it. It's worth it. It was very good. So FTR has a promo that gets interrupted by the Young Bucks, and the Young Bucks are actually acting like the dicks in this. They might be the heels if they do this. I like that. I think that could be good. I've always been more of an idea of the Young Bucks and Cody are best as heels. Kenny is best as a face. Hangman is best as a tweener who gets cheers more so than he gets boos. And if they're going in that route eventually, I think that would be great. So, the entire tag division comes out practically at the end of this match. I'm not a big fan of that, to be quite honest. I hate those kind of brawls. Those aren't my thing. But it ends in a very smart way where you have Hang Mega, the Young Bucks, and FTR all together in the ring. And if that is your core for the future of this tag division, Jesus, that's better than having the Usos, New Day, and insert third group here, which is saying a lot because Usos and New Day have amazing chemistry, and I did like their stuff when I was watching WWE. But if that's your trio of main eventer caliber tag teams, you're right. You have the best tag team division in the world. And this isn't including the Lucha Bros. This isn't including TH2. This isn't including SCU. This isn't including Best Friends. That's their top trio, and you got those guys in the back burner waiting to come up through the ranks for that. Come on, man. This isn't including Super Bad Death Squad. Dude, stacked. Anyway, then they have a commercial break. Put it in a decent spot, gets 1 out of 1 points. There's some QT stuff that happens. I didn't really pay too much attention to it. I didn't care. It's QT stuff. But it is telling a story that I am going to see where it goes before I judge too harshly. The next match is Shida and Statlander versus Ford and Rose. And there's a little action, and then there's a commercial break. I'm not a big fan of having commercial breaks in the middle of matches, unless they're picture-in-picture. This wasn't picture-in-picture, but it was placed in a fairly decent spot in the match, so I only took off a little bit, 1.75 out of the total 2 points it could have. Britt is at ringside and watching the match. Shida ends up doing the deal, hits the Falcon Arrow, but only gets a 2. No one kicks out of the Falcon Arrow except for, apparently, Ford. Penelope Ford did. Then she gets hit in the face with her own title belt. Penelope Ford puts on a fisherwoman suplex and gets the 3. Ford beats Shida. And this is why I'm thinking she's going to get a title shot. They're very much of the New Japan idea of you beat the champion, you get a shot at the champion. I think that's pretty cool. The match was okay, B-. It was fun, but not insane. There was a lot of stuff that was going on in my own life at the time. I had to stop watching live at this point. So I ended up reacting to stuff later. So perhaps it was the B- grade purely because of my inattentiveness to the match. I think that there was some good stuff. Ford being positioned as the number 1 contender is really good. I like that. Nyla Rose being upset with it but not attacking her was very interesting. I think that could lead into some interesting character developments down the line for her too. But regardless, we're going to move forward. Darby Allin does a skateboarding promo on his injury. He's talking with Tony Hawk and he's like, yeah, you don't need to have a doctor's clearance to skateboard here, do you, man? And I like that they have Tony Hawk really selling the fact that Darby Allin and skateboarding is like his other passion. The fact that Tony Hawk sees that in him, and the fact that Darby and Tony are more than likely having some sort of behind the scenes relationship as well, not romantic relationship, don't get it twisted. I think that that's really cool. I'm excited for what the future holds for him, because I really just want him to succeed. I want him to be happy. He's my boy. Britt Baker does a promo, a nice video package talking about her recovery. Not much more to say about that. I think there's a commercial break here after that. There might have been another one before. I didn't count it if there was. But anyway, there's a commercial break here then in my eyes, I think. So because it's in a fairly decent place spot, 2.75 out of 3. Next match is a 6-man tag in the middle of the card. Very interesting. SmackDown back in 2004 would have put that at the end of the match, at the end of the night. Y'all gonna have a 6-man tag. Playa. Anyway, Hager, Santana and Ortiz, or Hager and Proud and Powerful, versus Best Friends and OC. And there is a picture-in-picture commercial right before the match begins, 3.75 out of 4. A lot of commercials happening. I don't know, man. I think the commercial break happened somewhere before the Darby Allin stuff or before the Britt Baker stuff. I only put it after the Britt Baker stuff because I wasn't certain, but I figured there was one that was somewhere in there. And if it was after the tag match, good. If it was after the Darby stuff, good. If it was after the Britt Baker stuff, I probably should have taken points off, but because it was a picture-in-picture commercial for the Inner Circle stuff, I'll let it slide this time. I also didn't watch it live, so I don't know exactly. Orange Cassidy gets a nice hot tag. He is the best hot tag in the business. Him just going maybe 10% power level of a normal human being. Obviously not of an Orange Cassidy level person. Come on. Really good stuff. Orange Cassidy ends up hitting the rat trap on Ortiz and gets the 3. I don't know if they're calling it the mouse trap or not. I like the rat trap because that's what they called it when I watched him in Beyond. Or was it? Yeah, it was Beyond, I think. Might have been Bar. Wherever it was that he held the TV title and beat Star, I think it was Beyond. Regardless. JR makes a Pink Floyd joke because Jericho has Floyd the Bat with him, and he's like, he's got Floyd, and it's not pink either. So like, I like that. I ended up giving it a plus 0.25 to the worst grade simply because Pink Floyd is a big part of who I am, and anybody that makes a reference with it in any capacity gets points for that. The match was pretty decent, good match at parts, but I really wasn't into it. I watched this one again after I came back to rewatch everything. So I didn't watch it live, but it gets a B- grade. It was okay. A bit worse than the average match, but better than a typical squash match. So that's fair. Jericho starts hitting Orange Cassidy with an orange bag of blood oranges, I guess. They ended up making Orange Cassidy bleed somehow. I didn't see where that happened, how that happened. I don't really care. It looked painful, and this is where blood actually had an impact. You got to know when to do blood and when not to. They have it on a lot of their shows. I'm not a huge fan of having it on every show. That is starting to get old, but regardless, it was a 20-plus pound bag of blood oranges. Blood Orange Cassidy. I don't know, man. I didn't take anything off for that. I probably should have, but it wasn't for me. It could have been cool. Didn't like it much. Then there's commercial break, 4.75 out of 5. MJF cuts in on an interview, rather, that was happening with Billy. Billy Gunn, just minus the gun. And there could be an interesting fight there. MJF and Wardlow versus the Gun Club could be cool. Wardlow versus Billy Gunn could be cool. MJF versus Billy Gunn could be cool. Or just Billy, whatever you want to call him. I like that. That could be cool. Then they tease Colt Cabana possibly going over to the Dark Order. That could be interesting. And that's right before his match with Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara has a black ice scented car freshener on his scooter, by the way. I was tempted to give this another grade just for that because it's hilarious. I didn't give it any points, but I just wanted you to know that I was tempted. There's a picture-in-picture promo here, or commercial rather here, 5.75 out of 6. And the match was pretty good. A lot of back and forth going on. Cabana's looking a bit more serious in this match than usual. He's very jovial and jokey, and he's not so much in this match. He's taking his opponent very seriously here. In comparison, obviously it's Colt Cabana. He's never taking anything super seriously yet. We'll see if that changes down the line. But Sammy takes advantage of a slip-up. Colt Cabana's going for the Chicago Skyline, a reverse that he uses only on people who are hard to put away, typically. That's at least what I heard from Excalibur's brilliant commentary on the matter. I know I rolled my eyes there, but I actually meant it. He has brilliant commentary. Anyway, so he takes advantage of that slip-up, hits the GTH to go to hospital, and gets the 1-2-3. B+. Very good match. Total good story. A little bit better than an average match. And I like where they're going with Colt Cabana losing a lot in a row and being tempted by the dark side, going over to the Dark Order. Evil Uno and Stu Grayson are back. They come out first, and following them is pretty much the entire gang, except for 5. I didn't see 5. That upset me. I hope that he does eventually show up with them on live TV on Dynamite, but I didn't see him. I did see 10. I did see Alec Reynolds and Matt Silver. Or John Silver, rather. I did see, obviously, you two boys of Stu Grayson and Evil Uno. And then Brody Lee came out. And Brody Lee hands out a hand to Colt Cabana and helps him up to his feet. Then Colt follows them to the back. Interesting. So Sami's like, okay, well, I don't care about that. You're the loser anyway. It's whatever. Give me a mic. I'm going to start talking. He goes off on a promo for a little bit. Not a whole lot. Then Matt Hardy comes out to his Mattitude theme. Remember that for a second, okay? They have a conversation match just like, you remind me of a younger me, man. I'm really a big fan of your work. I didn't come out here to fight you. I'm letting you know that I like you. I think you got what it takes, but you need to get away from Jericho. And Sam was like, man, just fuck off. I'm not doing that. It doesn't matter if you're, Matt Hardy, Mattitude, blah, 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 broken. And as he's saying these different things, Matt Hardy starts switching between his personalities, eventually ends in the broken Damascus character. And he goes, rah, and all that kind of stuff. I love it. It's weird, but I love the multiple personality stuff with Matt Hardy. I think that it has potential to be really interesting because he'll have such different interactions depending on who he is and how he interacts with you based on that character. Pretty cool. Genoa Janela then has a very nice video package Okay, so they're having a, like, what's the term for it? It's like vaporwave, I guess. I think vaporwave's the best way to describe it. Music playing in the background, and it's talking about Joey Janela basically being in the main event of a match against Jon Moxley, doing very well for a while, and now he's sort of fallen off the map. So he's trying to find his feet, trying to find where he fits in with AEW. And he's at this bar getting drunk. He starts walking home, and then Sonny Kiss drives by. And Sonny Kiss is like, yo, you want to come hop in? He's like, yeah, sure, whatever, dude. And it looks like Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela are going to have an amazing friendship and tag team future together, I think. I absolutely love the vibe of that video package. I can't wait to see the next one, because they had a to be continued on the bottom of it. I am thrilled for it. Then there's a commercial break, 6.75 out of 7. Colt goes to talk with Brody Lee, and Alex Marvez doesn't really get to actually have a word in with him. He asks him about it, but Colt just sort of shakes it off and walks into the locker room. Then they do a preview for next week, Natural Nightmares versus Hang Mega for the title. We're going to have MJF versus Billy Gunn. Yes. Or MJF versus Billy. They don't mention the gun portion, but whatever. Les Sex Gods are going to be going up against Best Friends, and the title shot opportunity at Fyter Fest is on the line. That's big. That's going to be a big match. Superbad Death Squad is going to be going up against Young Bucks. That's, again, Havoc and Sabian. And the TNT Championship is going to be defended. Duh. I'm hoping that this is the first one that they do where it's Cody versus somebody not on the roster, because Cody was told or was asked on Twitter whether or not people from outside of AEW can challenge for it, and he said yeah, they could. So that could be an interesting thing. Anyway, I'm fairly certain there was a commercial break after that, but I didn't mark one down, because that's a lot of stuff that went back to back. Whatever the case, Moxley comes out, starts talking with Alex Marvez. He's upset. He's just like, Taz keeps running his mouth. I don't care about that. Let me do me. I want to have this match. Let's do it right here, right now, kind of thing. It's Mox. But it's a very impassioned promo. And then Cage comes out after Taz is like, dude, what the hell are you on about, man? Stop talking shit. You're going to get hit. Cage hits him, of course. They have a bit of a brawl in the parking lot. I think that you need to put some sort of stipulation between those two, because it will make it so much better. But also just a regular singles match will find a way to be amazing. So anyway, I thought this was really good. I'm going to give plus 0.5 to the worst grade. So that's plus 0.5 to the worst grade, and I think plus 0.25 to the worst grade from another thing. And that's it so far. So we got plus 0.75 to the worst grade on the show. Then they hype up Cody versus Mark Quinn for the main event. Do a little bit of a promo package about it. Interesting. And this match really gave me a better insight into the Jungle Boy Cody match. And I'll explain that once I've gone through this. But it was pretty good. So Private Party has a new theme. They come out to it. Maybe it's their individual theme. Maybe they are sticking with it. I hope they do, because I like this one better than the other one, and I like the other one pretty decently too, so this is good. Quinn has a BLM armband on his bicep. I think that's really cool. I'm glad that they allow them to do that kind of stuff. And Cody has a We Are All Family t-shirt that has LGBTQ representation. The fact that they are both making a statement about this current era. You have BLM in the news a lot recently from the George Floyd stuff. You know, Mark Quinn obviously wants to show his support. Makes sense. But it's also Pride Month. And so Cody being able to show a t-shirt, not just for getting it sold and all that, but also to promote something that they are taking very big commitments towards. Obviously Nyla Rose being trans. Obviously Sonny Kiss being, if not gay, at least flamboyant enough to represent that community pretty decently. I hope that that's not offensive. I apologize if it is. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Then they have a commercial break before the match. 7.75 out of 8. Justin Roberts is back. I'm not sure if he was back the entire time or if I just missed him. But regardless, it's good to have him back. He does the introductions before the match. And this is what I hope will turn into a storyline later on. I really like this. But it is just nice in general. There was a display of honor, kind of like what they do in Ring of Honor before matches, where they have to shake hands kind of thing. Cody sort of initiates it, and he and Mark Quinn shake hands, and then the match begins. I really love that. They did it for the Cruiserweight Classic, and that was one of my favorite things about the Cruiserweight Classic was the amount of honor that was between wrestlers, and then they turned that into a storyline. I really hope that they do the same type of thing here, and that will be what eventually turns Cody, because I think he's already a heel, he just doesn't know it yet. I think that's what's going to happen. Anyway, Quinn hits a beautiful dropkick pretty early on, and he's looking really good. I didn't realize he had this kind of chops as a singles wrestler as well. I sometimes forget that tag team wrestlers can fight in singles matches fairly well. Trent always surprises me. Chuck Taylor surprises me. The Young Bucks, when they had their match against each other, for example, surprised me. I always forget that tag team wrestlers, train to be singles wrestlers as well. So when I see them do something good, it's really good. Anyway, I'm getting cramps, man. I've been sitting here for an hour and 10 minutes, roughly. Tony Schiavone accidentally calls the TNT Championship the Television Championship, and you didn't need to cover it. We kind of knew. Anyway, there's a picture-in-picture commercial break during this, and because there's so many commercial breaks, I take points off. So we're at 8.25 out of 9. I only gave it half credit because it was a decently placed one, but I hate the amount that there are. Plus, that's 2 for this match alone now. It's your main event. Come on. Anyway, during this, Quinn's ankle gives out when he goes for a certain dive, and Cody immediately goes on the attack for it. I think his heel turn is imminent. It just is building to that. Him being as aggressive as he was in this match is really starting to show it to me. But regardless, Quinn hits a nice corkscrew DDT. I loved that. But he also is really starting to sell the leg in his moves. When he lands on it in some way, when he's running off the ropes, he's taking it as a limping style. It's really good selling. I wouldn't have been surprised if they ended this match in a figure 4. And this is where I started to realize, these matches are kind of symbolic of the old school mentality versus the new school mentality. And I'll explain that in a second, but I want to finish the actual description of the match. So Quinn takes too long trying to hit a shooting star press, ends up getting countered into an ankle lock, and he taps out. A grade, very good match. It makes me think that I missed something with last week's match, and that's what I'm going to explain in a second. Hager comes out, challenges Cody, basically for Fyter Fest. I thought it was going to be for the next week's show, but no, it's for Fyter Fest. Hager comes out, and he tries to fight. The Inner Circle looks to, really screw some stuff up. But then Private Party comes out with Matt Hardy to help out Cody. It breaks down into a fight. We don't really need these every week, so I ended up taking off 0.25 for that, even though Sammy has another hell of a sell with the Twist of Fate in this. But yeah, so overall show grade, let's get to that. Commercial breaks were pretty decent. A-. I thought that they did good. Obviously, 8.25 out of 9 gets you that grade, so kudos. That will give it +1 to the end grade. The overall grade, after that's added to it, is an A-. Really good show. One of the better graded ones I've done thus far. And it excites me for what happens in the next week, which is always what you want in your TV show, regardless what it is. So, what do I mean by the old school mentality versus the new school mentality? Well, in the first match, you had Cody versus Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy is sort of representative of the new hybrid of wrestler who can be both athletic and agile and do the flips and stuff, but also has power to boot. And the match basically showed Cody trying his best to put him down, and it took a lot out of him to do that. He ended up bloody and battered and bruised. But in the end, he did put that down, as hard as the match was. And it looked harder for him in this match, to be quite honest, against Jungle Boy than it seemed to be against Lance Archer in certain ways. He seemed more motivated to beat Lance, But in this, he seemed like he couldn't quite do it. And I think they did that on purpose. And I think that's why I missed something with the Jungle Boy match. I think I might have not seen something that was there. Then you have the match against Mark Quinn. And this is even more representative of it because Mark Quinn is the high flyer. He's the guy who does flips and does all these tricks and stunts to try and get noticed. You know, he goes all out. But he's doing this while injured. So, like, it's very clear he's putting his health at risk. It's very clear he's doing these things that aren't particularly safe in order to prove that he's better than the old school. Whereas Cody is, you know, very clearly beaten up. He's still showing signs from the blood from last week. And he's having a difficult time putting away Mark Quinn at points. He doesn't even use his finishing move. He has to go after the injury. He has to go after the thing that held back the new school kid. You know? And it seems to me they're building this story fairly well as, like, Cody will go up against the new school. The new school will sell their asses off, do the best they can, but still lose. And Cody will be emblematic of the old school. We're constantly putting them down, until eventually one of them beats him. And the match against Mark Quinn really showed this to me, and I think it is what they're going for. That when you have somebody whose style and whose basically their entire wrestling mentality is based around Southern wrestling, eventually in the modern age, that finds a wall that it will hit. It won't reach a lot of the newer viewers, the people who are into the Young Bucks, the people who are into the Kenny Omegas of the wrestling world currently. You know, it doesn't have the lucha background that people are really into. It doesn't have the King's Road background that people are really into. It doesn't have the British strong style or Japanese strong style that people are into. It's good old-fashioned American wrestling, which has its place, but eventually it gets worn out. People don't want to see just that. And I'm thinking that they are building to an eventual heel turn where he pretends that he is trying to save wrestling by bringing back the old school. I really think that's where they're going. And the fact that Cody is beaten up, battered, and bruised, and he's having difficulties with these matches, and he's, you know, very clearly struggling to find new ways to beat the the new school talent, rather. I kept trying to say old school talent. That wasn't what I meant. I really think that could be interesting if they did go that route, and I think they're going that route. But the fact that you've got an injured Mark Quinn, the fact that you have a Jungle Boy whose heart is very much in it, but his skill level was not quite there for it just yet. He was very clearly outmatched for the majority of the fight. I think you'll eventually get to Darby Allin, who has the heart, who has the skill level, and who has the answer, and he finally beats Cody, and he finally gets to have that moment. He'll be the TNT champion eventually. I think that's where they're going to go. I really hope so, because him losing twice and tying in a draw with Cody only leads me to believe that he beats him eventually, and that's his coming of age moment. That's his big moment. That's where he gets to finally have the ball and run with it. And I think that Darby, as the emblematic symbol of this new age of wrestling, it's deserved. I really do. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's another story going on that I'm not quite seeing, but I really believe that Cody is supposed to represent Southern American wrestling, Southern American style wrestling, and everyone that he faces is wrestling a new portion of what is up and coming in the new world of wrestling. You've got the Jungle Boys, who combine a bunch of lucha stuff with the typical American style, and then add on top of that their own powerhouse dynamics. You've got the Mark Quinns, who are very lucha based, but have a West Coast and East Coast mix. West Coast as in, you see a lot of the influence that you'll see in stuff in like Los Angeles and San Francisco style wrestling. You see a lot of that, but you also see a lot of stuff from New York style wrestling nowadays, where you've got a bit of a Smash Mouth style. You got that mixture of lucha and high flying stuff brought in mainly from like the Rey Mysterios of the world kind of stuff. But it is still New York based stuff, and he has a bit of that mixture there with his more lucha style stuff. I think you'll eventually see him going up against somebody who is more Kings Road style. So I'm trying to think of who that could be. I think you could probably see Joey Janela repping the hardcore and British strong style. But I'm trying to think of who could be a Kings Road. Maybe Kip Sabian. Kip Sabian could be a good answer for that, but he's also more of a British strong style. I'm having difficult time trying to figure out how they'll go down that road, but they'll go down it, maybe with Pac or something. But Jake Hager is going to represent the MMA influences on wrestling, and is also going to have that counter of the Southern wrestling. But Cody's going to beat him because he's Cody, you know? And it will have a nice effect of being like, well, Southern wrestling is good. It has its moments and where it can shine. And him versus Hager should be an amazing match, just demonstrating exactly that. But the new school will eventually win out, and you have to let the sands of time continue to tick. You can't put a stopper in the... I'm trying to think of the reference that I'm going for here. Oh God, I hate that so much. But I can't think of what I'm trying to say. Basically, the sand timers, the ones where like the sand drops down through the little holes and you can flip it. You know what I'm trying to say. I can't think of the term for it. But yeah, anyway, I rambled on a lot about that. So let's get back to the breakdowns just to sort of wrap things up. Commercial breaks. Whoops, I already did that. Sorry. So Dynamite this week on June 10th gets an A- grade. BTE didn't give it a grade, but it was pretty good. Dark on June 9th gets a B grade. Going back a week on June 2nd, Dark gets a B- grade, and Dynamite on June 3rd gets a B+ grade. So looking pretty good. A lot of good stuff going on for AEW. I'm excited for Fyter Fest. Probably going to be in about 3 weeks. They said it's sometime in the summer, but I think that they're building for it rather soon. 3 weeks seems to be a pretty good estimate for me. Regardless, I hope that you all enjoyed that. I know that I was scatterbrained. There was a lot going on. I am back. This episode will be the first episode in which I come back in my full-time schedule. I told you guys why. If you want a little bit more of a background behind that, want to hear more of me talking about that, that will be in the episode for First Day of the Rest of My Life. I know a lot of people that watch this might not watch my other stuff, and a lot of people that watch my other stuff might not even watch this. So putting these kinds of things is really only for those people that are completionists and watch all of my stuff. For that, I thank you. And for the rest of you who stick around to the end of this, regardless of that, I also thank you. Anyway, my name's the Jackhammer 13. Pleasure having you guys here, but I have to sign out. I will catch you guys next time.